Hey, greetings to everyone. I am Ntombi Mcoyi from Africa Unite, and I'm so pleased to have today Mr. David van Wyn, who I have the pleasure of having a conversation with. David van Wyn is from the Benchmark Foundation, and we are going to be talking about the Stilfontein mines and the tragedy that has just resurfaced. I personally myself didn't know much about it until it came out in the news, but a lot of human rights violations that we have seen. There are 78 people who were killed in the mine, and 46 survivors. So, David, I know your profile is really so vast, and you have great experience in terms of the mines and advocating about the mines. David, I just want to capture what you're saying is that so there's been exploitation of mine workers actually back during apartheid, and it's still continuing right now. You described that the miners they are fetched, in terms of whoever wants the job. They don't recruit them. They're going to recruit them, and then they're brought to the mine thinking, all is well and good. They're going to be working here. But you also mentioned in terms of now, where does it become illegal? Where do they become illegal miners? Okay, the moment you are retrenched, you no longer have a work permit. Now you are illegal in the country. So the mining companies don't want, the Stilfontein shafts 10, 11, and 12. The people in Stilfontein tells me that they just woke up Monday morning, got to the mine, and they were told you don't have a job anymore. There was no. There's supposed to be legal procedures for retrenchment that needs to be followed, and workers and unions need to be notified and so on. People were not notified. The residents of Stilfontein tell me that these guys were wandering around like ghosts in the township because suddenly they had no food, they had no income. And of course, they were renting accommodation and other things, and they no longer could pay their bills and so on. So they were really in a tight spot. And this is what then pushes people back into the mine as well, because they have to go and find some sort of income in order to meet their living expenses, their daily living expenses. And so what you're saying is they go back into the mine and just start working. Yeah, they go back into the mine and just start working, but they're there now illegally. But there's no company then. Yeah, the company is no longer there. But you see, in order to mine in South Africa, you must first apply for a prospecting license, and then within 3 months you have to apply for a mining license. Mining license has certain requirements. It must have a social and labor plan, which is supposed to take care of the laborers on the mine, their training needs and everything else, their health needs and so on, but also a social plan for the community around the mine. All the companies submit these social and labor plans to the Department of Mineral Resources, but they're not worth the paper they are written on because no one actually checks that they are carried out. And very often they're just a cut and paste job. When I worked in the Northwest Provincial Government, we discovered social and labor plans that spoke about ice cares. So in other words, they cut and paste from Canada. That's terrible. So the mining companies are not held accountable in terms of how they are doing their business and looking after not only the community but the people who are working for them. And yet, in the Stilfontein story and tragedy, it seems as if it is the miners who were wrong, but no one is actually talking about, what about the companies and all this product that the miners are continuing to mine. Who is it going to? Where is it going? Okay, so the government talks about these guys being illegal in the mine, but we've already mentioned 2 or 3 crimes. The government says it wants to clamp down on illegal and criminal activity in mining, but the government is not clamping down on mining companies not closing their mines according to the Minerals and Petroleum Resource Development Act. That's the first crime. The second crime is the mining companies don't pay out people's pensions, and these are the poorest of the poor. That you
that you are busy exploiting. And then finally, the mining companies or someone recruits labor and to work illegally, and that is a crime. Okay, so there's a syndicate operation that takes place. It's a criminal syndicate operation that takes place that covers all these particular areas of illegality that is there. Then the other issue that I mentioned earlier is that they leave dynamite underground, seemingly deliberately. And what we also find is that if you have to pay 167,000 rands for a 5 liter bottle of mercury, those unemployed guys can't afford that. It's not them who's buying that stuff. Someone is supplying them. And in the last week, in the interviews that I've had with some of them, they tell me how they eat yogurt to lubricate their throats, and then they swallow. When you take gold out, you take it out in forms of rock that you chisel out from underground, or you blast out from underground, and then you crush the rock, and then you wash it across a table with a carpet on it that. The gold sticks to the carpet because gold is heavier than the other materials and the rest washes off. Then you take this into a pan. You see, it's not like in the United States you get nuggets of gold and things like that. It's in a powder form almost. In the South African context, they call it low grade, not because the gold is bad. They call it low grade because you have to move an awful lot of rock. You have to move a ton of rock to get an ounce of gold. Now, they then blow out with a blowtorch. They first take it through mixing it with mercury. The gold sticks to the mercury. Everything else remains behind because mercury has this quality of attracting gold. And then they put the mercury in a pan and they blow it with a blowtorch until the mercury evaporates. Then you have little balls of gold remaining. Now these guys swallow the gold, right? Then they take the gold that they swallowed to guest houses in Vereniging. Okay, Vereniging is on the border, but just south of Johannesburg. And there they then extract the gold at the guest house, and the buyer meets them at the guest house, and they exchange the gold for the money. Now, the money comes in brand new packets of notes, still wrapped. Now, you and me don't have access to brand new packets of gold, let alone hundreds of thousands of rand that we fill a whole bag full with it. Which is another indication that the real crime is happening on the surface. It's not happening underground. The guys who are underground are desperate. They are hungry. They are trying to make ends meet. The guys above the ground are the guys who are really making the money, because the more pressure you put with the police and the army, the lower the price you can pay the Zamazamas, because they're desperate to get rid of the stuff rather than being caught with it. The reason why they stay underground for 6 months at a time is because if they come out every day after 6 or 7 hours a normal working day, the police will be waiting for them on top. So they stay underground for that length of time, and until they accumulate enough gold to be able to go and sell. So they do this whole process in the ultra deep level mines of Stilfontein, but also in the Free State. They do that whole process underground. Now, if you separate the gold from the mercury with a blowtorch, you get mercury vapor that you are inhaling. Mercury in contact with your skin, mercury that you absorb through your stomach, and so on. It's deadly. It's absolutely deadly. And staying underground for 6 months at a time means you are inhaling arsenic, you are inhaling silica, you are inhaling lead, you're inhaling uranium. All these mines were uranium mines. In fact, much more uranium was produced in South African mines than gold. I think for every ounce of gold, you probably get a couple of tons of uranium. South Africa was a major supplier of uranium to NATO during the Cold War and so on, until the 1976 riots, when the students rose up and sanctions began to be kicked in. South Africa had 27 uranium processing plants, which was reduced down to 7 after 1976. So After 1976, the uranium simply got dumped into mine dumps. It was no longer extracted because no one wanted to buy it.
Sure. And so, David, what really disturbs me is all these human rights violations or some kind of violations that are happening to people who are already in poverty. And yet companies are not held liable, businesses are not held liable. We don't know who are the faces of these people who are gaining from this. And Stilfontein Mines is not the only mines that this has happened, or it's just that we get to know about it now. There are many mines in South Africa that have been abandoned in the same kind of way. And that's why we do then have the Zamazamas who are still working there in the mines and selling to affluent people. How can we hold people accountable? What must happen? Because it's really unfair labor practice. It's the health and safety of people. People are slowly dying, eating poison. It's they've been denied access to food. They had the Stilfontein mines. That's why they were starving underground. Really, what needs to happen?
Okay, so if we sketch the situation, we've got 6,000 abandoned mines. So it is the norm to abandon mines. So it's the norm to break the law. Corporations break the law as a matter of course. In 150 years of mining, I don't even know if there's been 20 mine closure licenses issued, because they're simply not closed, they're simply abandoned. And so there's a failure of regulation, a failure of governance that is taking place there. But then if you consider that it's probably officials in government that make money from it, as well as people in the private sector and in business, you can understand why that is not being properly policed and regulated. The other thing is that mining companies are exceptionally wealthy. They're much wealthier than government officials. So when you go to the offices of the Department of Mineral Resources in Klerksdorp in the Northwest Province, you can very easily bribe the officials to turn a blind eye, to allow you to walk away from your responsibilities and so on. They call it the Kentucky meal deal. Okay, so they've got cameras in the offices to avoid corruption. So when you come there and you want something done that is illegal, the official will say, "You just quickly go out while I do the paperwork and get me a Kentucky meal." And you go to the nearest Kentucky, you buy the chicken, you throw it out in the bin, and you fill that little box with money. You come back, you give him the box of Kentucky, the camera say, "Oh, no, well, it's just getting Kentucky," whatever. Meantime, it's a whole box full of money. The other thing is that when communities complain about an official, very often they find that official within a couple of months of their complaint is actually now working for the mine. Officially is no longer working for the government because he gets much more money when he's working for the mine. And so the complaints that communities have and that workers have often fall on deaf ears. If you speak to workers about the labor inspectors, for example, they say, "Oh no, the mine managers take them into the office, give them a bottle of whiskey, and your complaint disappears. A complaint is not dealt with." In Main Reef Road in Johannesburg, just above Soweto, there's a big police station called Langlaagte. Within 200 meters of Langlaagte, there's an illegal mining operation that had been going on for 20 years. And the police never stopped it. It's right next to a primary school. And I worked on that site with Zamazamas, and I observed the police coming to what the Zamas call get their lunch money. They come without their name tags and so on.
The police.
If you don't cooperate with them, they lock you up for the weekend. They will let you out on Monday again. But they basically bully their way into sharing some of the money. Right behind that, you have Main Reef Road here, then you have a primary school. Right behind the primary school, the Department of Minerals gave mining rights to a company called Central Rand Gold to make an open cast mine that's about 1 kilometer long, 50 meters wide, 100 meters deep. right next to the soccer field. The open cast starts here. The soccer field of the mine is there, putting at risk primary school kids, 6 to 12-year-olds. And there wasn't an ounce of gold mined there. They were mining pension funds from shareholders and so on. They never intended mining any gold. And then they went bankrupt. The directors all walk away with millions of rands in their pockets that they got out of the pension funds. No one is held accountable. And that hole opened up all the tunnels underneath of an old mine. So now people could get into that hole and into that old mine. And I'm sure these same directors are the ones who are buying the gold from those guys at the moment. There are plenty of examples of that. Now, what is to be done is the question that you asked me. How do we deal with this? Well, the first thing is that we apply the law without fear or favor to the people on the surface, who are hiring the guys that are underground. The second thing that we have suggested as Benchmarks Foundation is that where there are mine workers who genuinely are mining, that we do an audit of all the abandoned mines and of mines that are about to be closed, and then we begin to organize people into business units, cooperatives, to do the mining in that particular mine.
So small scale mining.
Small scale mining. And then what we do is we create a central buying agency for the gold so that it's not the syndicates who buy the gold. We pay, let's say the gold price is $2,000 an ounce. We pay them 1,800 for an ounce. We keep the other 200 back so that we retain a fund to employ engineers, geologists, safety officers, and so on. We can create an engineer, safety officer, geologist, and so on for every 5 operations or so, so that we can try and make the operations safer than what they are at the moment. We don't allow mines to be stripped down, because what is happening now is when the company abandons the mine, because of the high levels of poverty, people go onto that mine site and they strip anything metallic to sell for scrap metal dealers so that they can have an income. That makes the mine very unsafe, because whatever was there, whatever infrastructure there was there, gets stripped. And then people start going underground and they strip all the infrastructure that is underground as well. And so makes it even more unsafe than what it is at the moment. So that's a solution that we would like to offer. And we know that in Ethiopia, for example, the whole mining industry is artisanal. There's 15,000 artisanal miners, and it's very well regulated and very well managed. It can be done in the South African context as well, but we've got to remove the criminal element from the surface that is controlling it at the moment. And the other thing in South Africa is the control over scrap metal dealers is very poor. So scrap metal dealers are buying radioactive metals and iron coming from mine sites and so on that they resell to whoever. You're putting people's lives at risk because of this metal was exposed to uranium and so on. You shouldn't be doing that. The scrap metal dealers also buy gold. Okay, so they're another link in the supply chain of gold into the formal system. Now, very often it's the mining companies themselves that buy the gold from the mines that they have abandoned. So that's why we say it's a degradation of labor, because mine workers, through their union actions over time, managed to get themselves almost a living wage. They had medical aid, they had pensions, they had all kinds of other things that you associate with civilized labor. And this system of zamazamas that are operating now is taking away the rights of workers. It's taking away the workers. It's reversing history. It's what Ronald Reagan called, we are going to reverse history. And so reverse the history of the working class, reverse the rights of the working class, reverse the rights of ordinary people, and so on. And as you've said, it's the constitutional right to health and safety. These guys don't have it. The constitutional right to food and water. One of the guys I interviewed last week said that He's working in the Free State. The longest he's been without any food is 10 days at a time, because when the security companies at the top fight over who controls the mine, or when the police come there and create whatever they do, the food doesn't come. He says they eat toilet paper and toothpaste. That is what they eat. That is their standard meal.
Sure.
They drink the contaminated water underground when clean water doesn't come down. And the water contains uranium, it contains cadmium, it contains lead, it contains
Terrible.
arsenic and all these other things.